the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our family and our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again. On the road again. We can't wait to get on the road again. Telling stories to our friends. We can't wait to get on the road again.
Welcome to our monthly AAA podcast, Affinity, Allie, and Annette on the road to good storytelling with your hosts, Allie Spooner and Annette Morey. Our special guest today is Angela Koenig, who has written an award-winning series with that heart-thumping action I love. The second book, Rendezvous in Himalaya, was a Goldie finalist, and it's just an awesome series. Angela was born in California, raised in Nebraska, and now resides in Illinois. That's my home state. She's worked at a number of occupations, including janitor, teacher, house painter, proofreader, and telephone operator. A practicing, I don't even know how to pronounce this, Angela, autodidact? Is that?
Autodidact.
Autodidact. And you'll have to define that, because that is not a word that I have heard before. Some of her interests are recent and ancient history, literature, Gaelic, and geology. Yet when all is said and done, it's reading that's the point. She always wanted to write, and there is an unfinished novel about an orphan puppy started when she was in 5th grade, but it wasn't until a little Apple computer made instant editing possible that the dam broke. She believes that story is serious stuff, that through fiction, we can see further and feel more deeply, and she hopes that her stories contribute to this goal. She's the author of the Refraction series, Rebellion in Ulster, Rendezvous in the Himalaya, and Requiem for Vukovar, which are included in one omnibus volume, and also Reach the Huron, which is a prequel, right, Angela?
Yes, it is.
That's the prequel.
Yeah.
All right. So without further ado, you're on, Angela. Take it away. And first, tell us what autodidactic means.
Well, it's kind of like I just continue learning all of this stuff. And it's more that, it just means self-taught, rather than taking classes on something.
Okay.
So,
Okay.
It's something that I practice religiously every chance I get. Thank God I'm retired. Now I can autodidact all I want. So, okay. The reading is from Requiem for Vukovar. And just a bit of background. This reading takes place, it's early summer in 1991. Jerry and her partner Kelly, who met in Rendezvous in the Himalaya, have joined a group of refugees fleeing violence in Croatia, a province in the disintegrating country of Yugoslavia. Jerry's on the run because of her past association with the Irish Republican Army, a story that's told in Rebellion in Ulster. Warplanes have just strafed the column of refugees. And I have the book here, I believe, which would be useful. Okay. Jerry took several quick steps off the road and then paused to assess her next moves. She could see where some of the runners had stepped, marks that promised more or less safety if she just walked the same route. Not entirely. They might simply have stepped over a firing mechanism that would wait patiently for months or years before exploding. Jerry forced herself to focus down, to ignore the need to run to the crying child. She lowered herself to her hands and knees. There. She saw the green tripping mechanism of a mine as it protruded an inch or so above the ground. She looked around and selected a stone and then ripped the sleeve from her shirt. Again, she ripped until she had a strip of pale cloth to tie onto the stone. As she crept along on hands and knees, Jerry saw an old branch, dry and brittle, and she took it with her. She could tie pieces of her sleeve to small sticks from the branch. As she passed Voina, Jerry wanted to just sit back and cry. What had it all been for? She and Kelly might just as well have kept driving that day for all the good they'd done. They hadn't protected Voina at all. What had been the point? So she could see again what it looked like when a person she knew died? Christ, she'd never expected the bomb to go off as a bus full of people passed the car. The IRA always called in warnings. No one was supposed to have been killed by that bomb. Is that what the soldier thought who planted these landmines? They're not meant to hurt anyone, just scare people. Maybe if she just got up and started walking, this whole cycle of agony would end. It would be fitting to go in an explosion. Just stand up and walk. It would be all over and it would be finished for her. She'd get what she deserved. Kelly could go home and live a normal life. The world would get on with its perverse and bloody absurdities, and she could quit having to know about it. Don't be ridiculous, said a voice in her head. This isn't about you. It's about that child out there. The voice was familiar. Don't be ridiculous. Arcadia O'Malley would never have said those words to Jerry. But more than anything, Jerry never wanted that woman to think she was ridiculous. Jerry sighted along the ground. She saw another tripping mechanism and she marked it carefully, moved on. It's a terrible error of the age, Arcadia O'Malley had once said. A terrible error to think that we're each separate and single. Individualism denies the links we have to one another, the connections of our souls and the needs of our hearts. We belong to one another, so don't ever be so absurd as to think what you do is nobody else's business. Jerry heard the words in accented Irish English. The prisoner who had learned how to be truly free, the woman with steel gray hair and the piercing eyes of a hawk, had awakened Jerry to remembering that she herself had a soul. A bird chirped, a piece of life returning to the broken landscape. Jerry's hand, moving lightly at ground level, encountered a tripping mechanism that was almost completely covered by dirt. Jesus, she could have missed that one so easily. She marked it and moved on. She owed Raffy. She'd made promises to Kelly. If she died here due to carelessness, it would be an act of despair, surrender, and she could not surrender yet. Jerry reached the child, a girl of 2 or 3. Her mother lay crumpled a few feet away. The child seemed to be in shock, her sobs monotonous and repetitive, but there was no sign of any wounds. Carefully, Jerry sat back and drew the youngster into her lap, soothing her with nonsense sounds and gentle petting. The sobs didn't cease, but they grew a little quieter. Most likely, the explosion had terrified the child, maybe even temporarily deafened her. Jerry sighted her route back and then stood. She'd marked safe steps with shallow indentations as she crawled out. Now she walked back, carrying the child, following her own marked path. It was as if everyone on the road released a collective sigh when Jerry reached safety. Without thinking about it, she handed the child to Mrs. Susick. Then she turned to Kelly and received an embrace so strong she thought she might have bruised ribs before it was over. Oh, Jerry, baby, I was so scared. Oh, thank you for coming back. I couldn't bear losing you, not now, not ever.
That was a great reading. Thank you.
I'm going to jump into not quite the middle of the book, but it's a little further into the book because I want to give a reading that shows both characters. So there's 2 main characters. There's Governor Sandra Murphy, who is the president. She's going to be a presidential candidate, the favored Democratic presidential candidate. And then Winter Holmes, who starts out being kind of a foe. She's a bit of an enemy to Governor Murphy because she asks really pointed questions. And so the scene that I'm going to read is one where they meet. She goes to this lesbian bar, Governor Murphy, and sees Winter there. And that's the scene that I'll read. Of all the gin joints, Sandra knew that voice. She put the pieces together while berating herself for the decision to stop at Lavender Lips for a quick drink and to commiserate with Jerry at the same time. The woman turned slowly, and Sandra lost her carefully engineered poker face for a second. She risked direct eye contact. Governor Murphy, are you following me? There was that smoky voice, the voice which had not so long ago asked that pointed question. However, regardless of how upscale and discreet Lavender Lips was, Sandra couldn't figure out why Winter would be in a lesbian bar. You two know each other? Jerry asked, while grinning and winking at Sandra. Not like that, Sandra corrected, and immediately regretted that response. We've crossed paths before. Ms. Holmes is a member of the press. She works for True. Jerry had the good sense to cringe. Oh, that's right. I almost forgot you were a reporter for that propaganda machine. And a major thorn in Sandra's side. Winter shrugged and glibly replied, good thing it's irrelevant to my desire for a good microbrew. And you've never held that against me. Sit, Governor Murphy. I promise I won't bite, at least not in the safe space. I presume Lavender Lips is a safe space for you. What will you have? I'll buy. It's the least I can do for always giving you fits at your press conferences. Thanks, but I'd prefer to purchase my own drink. Unfortunately, I can't have the press misinterpreting your generous offer. Next thing I know, I'll be part of a trumped-up scandal exploited by your network. Winter grabbed her shirt and feigned an expression of hurt. I may ask tough questions, Governor, but I have never reported or repeated any falsehood. So don't lump me in with some of my colleagues who are entertainers, not reporters. There is a difference in the programming. Sandra scoffed. Perhaps, but you work for a network that gleefully sidesteps the ethics of reporting without bias. While entertaining to some, opinion pieces are a real danger to others. You're an intelligent woman, Ms. Holmes. So frankly, I believe that network is beneath you and your talents. But what I'd really like to know is why you are here. I haven't been to this bar in years. Were you hoping to glean a salacious tidbit about me by sidling up to one of my closest friends? You do your research, I'll give you that. So much to unpack in your series of statements, peppered with, dare I say, insulting questions. Winter grinned. Why does anyone frequent a lesbian bar, Governor? I'm not at all afraid of my queerness. Avoiding queer venues is your shtick. Oh, Winter was queer. Now that was an interesting piece of information. Sandra opened her mouth to defend her decision to avoid public places and that generated gossip and innuendo, especially within the right-wing media. At the last minute, she stopped, not wanting to come across as defensive. If you bothered to take a breath rather than jump to conclusions, you would have learned that I've been coming to Lavender Lips for a very long time, Winter continued. I found this bar about a month after moving to the area and have been a regular ever since. Jerry is one of the few individuals I would call a genuine friend, especially in the overly pretentious Southern California crowd. How about if we declare Lavender Lips a safe space? I promise I won't use anything I learn about you in this bar in any segment I choose to write. You have my word. Winter stuck out her hand. Sandra tentatively accepted Winter's hand and shook, glancing at her friend who had watched the exchange with apparent interest, ending with a single arched brow. Sandra said, "I'll take one of your famous lemon drops, Jerry. You can put Miss Holmes' beer on my tab." Winter chuckled. "Ah, now who is trying to bribe whom? Hoping that my future questions will be softballs like the ones you received from the network that shall not be named. If I admit the network I work for leans right, you must acknowledge our competition practically falls all over itself to ensure they don't tarnish your golden image." "Perhaps," Sandra agreed, "but at least they don't tell outright lies. I would think the rampant homophobia would have sent you packing long ago." Sandra shook her head. "I just don't get it." Winter shrugged. "I'm merely invested in the truth, Governor. Unfortunately, your favorite place to give interviews already had a token lesbian. Since they weren't interested in hiring me, I went to their competition. True gave me a chance, and they treated me well. I don't have to agree with all my colleagues to do my job. How about we pivot to another topic? What took you so long to come out? Strictly off the record," she added.
Thank you.
Great reading. Great reading.
Politics of love. Okay, so in closing, don't forget to check out our YouTube channel and subscribe. Next month, we'll be discussing Southern heritage with our special guest, McGee Matthews. And also, Allie's going to do a reading too, because Allie does Southern like McGee. No one does it better than Allie. She definitely does.
Absolutely.
Any final comments that you want to share for us before we end?
I just want to say that, thank you to both of you for, just keeping, good lesbian novels available for all of us.
Yeah. Allie's much more prolific in her writing than me, but I'm like the little engine that could.
Hey, you've caught up with me, girl. You have been on a streak.
Right.
Okay.